The top 30 players in the NBA today. I made one of these after last year's playoffs, and it's been highly requested this year, so here's my updated top 30 players in the league. I will say this year's playoffs did influence a lot of the decisions here, so do keep that in mind. Also, honorable mentions go out to Nikola Jokic, Kemba Walker, Zach LaVine, Brandon Ingram, Kristaps Porzingis, LaMarcus Aldridge, Ja Morant, DeMar DeRozan, and Drew Holiday, who all just missed out on the list, which should tell you just how talented the rest of these guys are. Number 30, Kyle Lowry. Lowry stepped up big this year, and he was the leader for the entire Toronto Raptors that I didn't know he could be. And he's getting up there in age, but he's just as good now, if not better than he's ever been. 29, Pascal Siakam. He was expected to be Toronto's go-to guy this year and take Kawhi Leonard's role with him gone, and he started the year out strong, but as it went on, especially in the Celtics series, we saw that there's still a lot of holes in his game. He's still young though, and I'm sure he's going to fix whatever problem he needs to. 28, Jamal Murray. Usually gets overlooked in these talks, but he shouldn't. In the regular season, he's a great player, but in the postseason, turns into a superstar. I think next year, if he can come out playing a lot better in the regular season, he could rank maybe top 15 to 20. 27, Bam Adebayo. After the performance he just put up this year and the fact that he's one of the best two-way players in the league, I wanted to put him a lot higher, but let's not get ahead of ourselves after just one great year. He will rank much higher as the years go on though. 26, Devin Booker. One of the most underrated guys in the NBA, even though we all know how good Devin Booker really is. But I think next year will be a turning point for Phoenix, if they can just play things right this offseason. Sign some more players, make some trades, have their young guys develop, then Booker can prove why he deserves to be ranked a lot higher. Number 25, Draymond Green. I mean, I don't know where to rank Draymond anymore. I had him a lot higher in past videos, but we haven't seen him play in forever, and he did terrible this year when he was on the court alone or even just with Steph. So I didn't want to throw off the rest of this list by putting him in the middle somewhere. So we're just throwing in the former defensive player of the year here at number 25. 24, Bradley Beal. And Beal's basically doing the same thing as Devin Booker, playing like a star on a bad team, but he's doing it at a much higher level, which is why he ranks a few spots ahead of him. Dominating as a player on a bad team, and he's a lot closer to his prime, so he should be playing at a higher level. 23, Rudy Gobert, who's another guy who's come a very long way since he first got into the NBA. He averaged 10 minutes and 2 points a game in his first season. Now he's one of the best defenders in the league and averaging 16 a game on offense. 22, Trae Young. Trae's been off to a historic start to his NBA career, and if he keeps up the pace that he's at now, he'll be off to an actual historic NBA career. 21, Karl Anthony Towns. Towns slightly beats out Gobert here and is still, in my opinion, the third best center in the NBA. His offensive game is one of the best the entire league has, with him putting up 26 and 10 on 41% from 3, and next year's going to be huge for the Timberwolves because if they either draft the first overall pick or make a good trade for it, Towns will have that and D'Angelo Russell, and how good they get from there will determine whether or not he deserves to be ranked higher or lower on this list in the future. Number 20, Donovan Mitchell. If I made a shooting guard ranking video, I don't know that I would have Donovan Mitchell ranked over Bradley Beal like I do in this one, but with Mitchell's leadership and playoff success, it was hard not to rank him higher, and this is just where he ended up ending up. And I'm sticking with it, because he's the type of player that doesn't always put up these insane numbers, but he does always come up big for his team when it matters most, and that's something you can't teach. Number 19, Jason Tatum. I wanted to rank Tatum a little higher, but I ended up having to bring him back a few spots to make this list right. Plus, it was only his first year as an all-star, so we don't want to give him too much credit too early. He's going to be great though, and next year is also going to be a big one for him. I want to see him step up and end up putting up maybe 26 a game, and from what we just saw from him, that's a very real possibility. Number 18, Klay Thompson. Even though Klay's been out of action for over a year, I still have him as the second best shooting guard in the NBA over guys like Bradley Beal and Donovan Mitchell. He's the second best shooter of all time, and no matter if he's the first or fourth option on the team, his play style still allows him to average 20 every single night. Number 17, Ben Simmons. And he was tough to rank because Ben's so close to being a dominant player. He has all the tools that it would take to be a Giannis or LeBron type player, but he just doesn't play like one, at least yet. I don't know when or if that time will come, but I hope it does because he's already one of the best two-way players in the game, so if he can start taking over games, he could be a top 10 player in the league. 16, Joel Embiid. This season was just bad for Philly, and it wasn't Embiid's fault. He did what he was supposed to do. This one falls more onto Philly and the players that they chose to stick around him, and that's why people want him traded, even though he's still the second best all-around center in the league, without a doubt. Number 15, we we got Paul George, and it's crazy, PG went from being top 3 in MVP and Defensive Player of the Year voting at the end of last season, and now 1 year later, he's just a meme. And the Clippers just fell apart as a whole, with everyone besides Kawhi Leonard not exactly playing like themselves. But PG led that. He was supposed to be a star and was terrible. I mean, last year he was thought of as maybe the best two-way player in the game, but now I don't even know where we go from here. We didn't want him to drop down too low, but last year he would have finished in the top 10, and now he'll stay at 15. 14, Chris Paul, who pretty much did the opposite of what Paul George did last year, because instead Chris went from people, thinking he was good last year to now thinking he's still a superstar. He really couldn't have had a better 2019 and 20 season, and that's why he still ranks so high. 13, Russell Westbrook. Okay, I'll admit, overall Russ and Harden worked out a lot better than I thought they would, and they both deserve some props for that, because they proved a lot of people wrong. But now that list of teammates that Russ has had and been unsuccessful with just keeps growing. So now at this point, I honestly don't know what kind of team his playstyle would be a good fit into. Number 12, Kyrie Irving. From his play on the Cavs without LeBron to the Celtics as the leader and his 20 games with the Nets this year, I think the one thing we've learned is that Kyrie isn't good on his own, but he may still very well be one of the best second options there is. This year when KD comes back to the Nets, they're going to be great and Irving's going to be a big difference maker. So even though he's not a great leader, I still have him as a top 3 or 4 point guard. Number 11, Nikola Jokic. The Nuggets are still such a young team and they've already had such an impact on the league, and Jokic has been at the center of that. He's easily the best center in the league, and one of the things that makes him so good is he's the type of guy that no matter really what team you put him on, he's going to make them better. A player like Rudy Gobert or even Joel Embiid, they wouldn't fit in on every team, but Jokic does because his skill set is so diverse, and he's got to be the most diverse center of all time. 10, Damian Lillard. People say he's underrated, but he's not underrated, he's just not talked about as much because he's on a bad team. I mean, I gotta say, the way the Trailblazers roster is set up is one of my least favorite rosters there is. If they had a better team, Lillard would be talked about more, but since they're not a real threat at any point, I think they get talked about just as much as they should. 9, Luka Doncic. So Luka really is a point guard, and we got him at only 21 years old, already in the top 10 players in the NBA. And he wouldn't have ranked this high if he didn't have such an amazing performance in the playoffs against the Clippers, and 3 of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. But he did. Number 8, Jimmy Butler. Before the season, Jimmy ranked somewhere between 15 and 20 in the top 30, but after leading a very young team to the NBA Finals, then taking over once he got there, he's now rightfully in the top 10, and his final performance goes down as an all-time great. I mean, the only thing he really needs to work on is his three-point shot. It looked like he hung out too much with Ben Simmons while he was in Philly because he passed up on way too many open threes in the finals. If he could have taken them and made them consistently, the Heat would have had a much better chance at success. 7, Kevin Durant. So again, I'm saying the same thing now as I did in last year's top 30 video. We don't know how good he'll be when he returns, so we're just gonna guess and assume that he comes back good enough to land himself on the number 7 spot out of every NBA player. 6, James Harden. I'm saying it now, James Harden will go down as one of the best players to never win a ring. His style just doesn't work in the playoffs, and it never really has. I don't know, he has the skills, but he'd need to completely change up his style to ever really win a championship, no matter who he plays with. Either way though, if he does win a championship or not, he's still without a doubt the 6th best player in the NBA today. 5, Steph Curry. Steph deserves to be ranked high, and I wanted to rank him as high as possible, but I also had to be realistic. And even though he's one of the best offensive players ever, I couldn't rank him higher than some of the elite defenders ahead of him who are also great on offense. So at least he makes the top 5. If he comes back this next season and leads the Warriors to another championship or something, he'll move up. But for now, it's only right to keep him here. For number 4 though, we have Anthony Davis, and what always stopped him from ranking any higher was his lack of playoff success. But since he's now an NBA champion, he gets some more credit. We can't give him too much though because he won it alongside LeBron James, and everyone in this top 10 could have won if they were teamed up with LeBron, but he did what he was supposed to do and stayed just as dominant all postseason long. Number 3, Giannis. 2-time MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season, but I couldn't rank him any higher when he's never made an NBA Finals, while everyone else in the top 5 has, and has won a championship. He finished this season with the highest PER of all time though, and got a lot better at shooting threes, which is a good sign. So his lack of a championship is the only thing stopping him from being thought of as the best player in the league. Number 2, Kawhi Leonard. Former Defensive Player of the Year, averages almost 30 a game at this point for the Spurs and Raptors championship, and you might not like him, he might not be flashy, he might sit out a lot of games, but he's still the 2nd best player in the NBA. And okay, I know I put Kawhi first last year, but I thought he was stepping up and taking LeBron's place, but I was wrong. LeBron's still number 1, and there's no argument to be made against it. And okay, I'll admit I tried to make some of them in the past couple of years, but there's not one. And the Lakers are going to be favorites to win the title as long as him and Anthony Davis are together. And that's my list for the top 30 players in the NBA today. I don't know that it'll be as controversial as last year's video, but either way, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, drop a like to let me know, subscribe with notifications on, and I'll catch you next video.